stop, please? Thank you.
I was not a derogatory sentence. You can stop.
Okay, but you can't say what's your skin tone, bitch. Don't say skin tone.
Excuse me?
Don't say nigger. Like, I'll tell you whatever I want to know.
Stereotypical racism is still a problem in today's society, even in schools. Stereotypes and racism are two different things, and they can sometimes be used together, like the term common white girl. But is racism still an issue at Richview? We asked students to see how they felt.
Do you think that racism is still an issue at Richview?
Not really.
Not really. I didn't see anything this year.
I mean, I've never really experienced racism in Richview.
I'm 50-50 on the fact that racism is a present thing at Richview.
Racism is still present at Richview.
Yeah.
Why do you?
A bunch of white kids called me nigger like a couple times a week. So, well, I don't know if you heard about this, but one got suspended for 2 hours. And then they told him that he wasn't allowed to go to monocliffs or play on the football team, but he still played on the football team and went to monocliffs. Yeah, he called me a nigger 15 times.
I think it is, but I don't really have any proof of that.
Don't worry, Jack. We have proof. On February 7, 2013, a racist hoax was sent home in the form of a Richview letter, stating that African Americans are to be avoided in the halls and they will be made to pay an extra $1.50 per purchase in the CAF due to their aggressiveness. How did this letter affect the Richview community?
Do you think that racism is still present at the school?
Well, if you ask me if I think it's present, I'd say it's just a guess. In 2016, I would guess that it is.
What were the students at the school at the time's reaction to the letter?
Shock, anger, disappointment, resentment, bewilderment. But to happen at a school like this, not expected.
And has anything similar ever happened at this school?
Well, I don't know before my 5 years, but no, nothing since then. I really believe that was a great aberration.
Does Richview have a reputation with other schools for being racist or stereotypical?
Not that's been brought to my attention.
Imagine this.
Here's a letter from the White House signed by President Obama that's going to ask every illegal immigrant in the state of Florida to line up and jump into the Gulf of Mexico. It's just too preposterous. But if people want to believe it or want to believe it's true.
If Richview sent this out, would you believe it?
No, because I don't believe someone would do this.
Bar?
Yeah.
You would?
I would believe no.
I would believe it, but I wouldn't know how to react to it.
I don't know. Maybe I might. Yeah.
What race do you think the person who wrote this letter is?
More probably white. White? Can I say white?
Yeah.
Caucasian.
I would probably say they're white.
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 These are the reactions.
Is this real?
So if we said that the person who wrote this letter was also African American, what would be your first reaction?
It'd be why would they do that against other people that are the same race as them? Why?
That they're pretty stupid.
I'd be very surprised, in all honesty, because I wouldn't expect someone to be discriminating against their own race.
I don't know, that's just shocking. I couldn't imagine it.
I would be shocked because that's discriminating your own kind.
We decided the best way to get what we needed was to ask the author for his thoughts.
So basically, one morning I had a supply teacher in first period, and it was media class, I believe. And so we got taken into the back laboratory with the computers in the library, and I didn't feel like working. So I was like, what could I do to occupy this hour of time we have in class? And I figured, let's make it somewhat humorous. So I remembered seeing something online, a hoax, that somebody put something outside of a McDonald's, and it said basically that due to an increase in robberies and things like that, they've actually been charging black people an extra $1.50 as some sort of security fee or some nonsense, something ridiculous. Obviously a hoax. Myself, I found that hilarious just because who could possibly have that kind of thinking in this day and age? So for someone to leave that out there, that's obviously something I, as a black man, find funny, because nobody thinks like that anymore. So I did the same thing basically, and I created a letter that looks exactly like the letterheads you get about every month or whenever Richview has something to send out. And I created the exact same template and basically wrote the exact same message. It was along the same lines, and I didn't intend to print it out and give it away to people. It was kind of just for me and my group of friends who know my kind of sense of humor. So we wrote that as a kind of inside joke. You know, we'd show who we wanted to show, keep the spread of the actual note itself off the internet and out of the public, but only from us. That didn't really work. I showed it to the wrong person. She took a picture of it, and the rest is history. It ended up on the internet. And within the next day, I was getting messages from people I don't even talk to, people who I've only ever said hi to in the halls, and they're like, you know that thing you did? And I'm like, how the fuck did you know I did that? Everyone knew I did it. And it was on the news, it was in the newspapers, on TV. My parents had asked me about it the day before, and I said, what letter? I've never heard anything about that. And, you know, eventually it caught up to me, and about a week, you know what, exactly a week later, I was called into the office and was told that I was going to be charged for a hate crime for racism against black people. And it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Dealt with the cops, told them the exact story basically that I've just told you. There was obviously a little more detail that I couldn't go into, but the main point of it is, wrote the letter as a joke, it was meant for me and my friends, got into the wrong hands, and it spread like wildfire, and didn't end up great for me. I was suspended for a month from school, fell behind on a lot of work, soiled some relationships with teachers in the school, but that's basically the whole story.
Since this letter was published, racism may have died down, but it will always exist.
Do you regret making the letter?
Oh, hell no. I don't regret it one bit.
Okay, so
I hit it after them, and then they get impressed, like, "Ooh, white boy can dance!"
I guess we're all wearing Sperry's, you know.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Or I like fried chicken, which I'm not frankly a fan of too much. And she's laughing. She's laughing.